Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
We'll have a look at how Beef Checkoff funded research helps grow consumer demand for beef. Plus, details on a game-changing vaccine that can protect young calves from BRD.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. Every day, consumers make choices about what foods they'll eat and what foods they'll feed to their families. That's why Beef Checkoff funded research is so important to help ensure those consumers continue to choose beef when they make their purchasing decisions. And joining us now to talk more about how NCBA helps to manage these efforts is Dr. Mandy Carr-Johnson, Senior Executive Director of Scientific Affairs. Dr. Johnson, thanks again for coming to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us just a little bit about your team and why the work they do is so important to our industry.
We have a great team of research scientists across many different disciplines, trained at some of the leading universities across the country, from meat scientists to nutrition scientists to registered dietitians, all the way to those working on food safety, sustainability, and understanding the consumer base today.
And so tell us, what are some of the types and kinds of research that they do on behalf of the Checkoff?
So we have a really strong team in our technical research area. So these are individuals that work on product quality. So a meat scientist, an understanding about beef's eating qualities and how consumers engage with it. Nutrition research, scientists really looking at the nutritive value of beef and how that can play a role in consumers' diet today, all the way to understanding the safety of beef, particularly from a pre-harvest standpoint, and what we can do in that area to improve that end product safety, but also sustainability. And how can we continue to demonstrate that beef is a sustainably raised protein today across the country?
But it's not just about technical research, if I'm not mistaken. You also do some work in the area of consumer research. Is that right?
We do. So we have a team of scientists that work really understanding the consumer. Daily, they're surveying consumers on a series of questions that really help us understand what are our limiters to beef demand, but also what will be the things that people find positive that increases beef demand, and how can we better understand that so we can address that through other programs like consumer marketing or engaging with our supply chain partners.
So once you generate results from this research, be it technical or consumer driven, how do you get that research into the hands of people that it can actually do something in applying that?
So in our technical research area, we really based on the principle of publishing research through the stringent peer review process.
Okay.
So that might be in a scientific journal. It also is presenting that research through our scientists on the national stage, like at a national conference that brings the industry together, both academia and industry experts, to understand that information and then apply it. On our consumer side, it would be publishing articles in journals that maybe people read, or in popular press, and also providing it to our producers through segments like Directions magazine and other pieces of content.
So let's talk about that from a consumer standpoint for just a minute. I mean, can you give us any specific examples of how the work you do actually does help drive consumer demand for beef?
I can. I think one of the great examples is being able to show through our nutrition research program beef's role in a heart-healthy diet that's typical of a Mediterranean-style diet, which typically doesn't have a lot of beef in it. Okay. But through research, being able to show that you can replace the protein in that diet with beef and have similar impacts as the traditional diet. All the way to looking at the eating quality of beef and what has been our evolution in improving tenderness. And now also looking at those differences at what makes beef flavor the thing that makes people come back to it every time. So research really allows us to decrease inconsistencies, but also show how beef can play a positive role in diet, all the way to showing consumer demand and differences in what's important to them when they're picking their protein at home or at a restaurant.
And it certainly feels like more and more consumers see beef and view beef in a much more positive light than they once did. I'm curious, as you look ahead to the future, I mean, what do you anticipate some of the key research priorities being for you and your team?
Well, I think one of our key things is we have a research roadmap that we build with industry advisors that looks at those important areas on a 5-year plan that coincides with the beef industry long-range plan.
Yep.
So we're working through 2025 on that current roadmap, really in each one of those areas. What we are starting to do as the new long-range plan is developed for the industry, we'll reassess what those priorities are. So I think we will still have beef safety and pre-harvest, product quality, human nutrition, sustainability, and our consumer market research, but looking at the evolution of those different topics so that we stay in tune as the consumer continues to change.
Thank you, Mandy, for all you and your team do on behalf of the beef industry.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Every day, Beef Checkoff funded research is taking place at universities all across the United States. Here's a look at the long-term value this delivers to our industry.
Scientific research has been a cornerstone of the Beef Checkoff program from the very beginning. As a contractor to the Beef Checkoff, NCBA has a scientific affairs team that manages research projects that are conducted at universities nationwide.
You look at the variety of research projects, for example, that we look at and deal with, pre-harvest, post-harvest, and nutrition, those types of things that really form the foundation by which we do our promotion work and really look at going out there and doing beef demand. And so you really have to have all of those in order to have a great system.
The ability to concentrate on so many things that are important to the producer, but it's important because it impacts what the consumer is getting, I think has been phenomenal. And so it's just a wonderful opportunity that producers have had over these years to have the Checkoff program that has been able to, spend so much time and effort in improving product because the research could address the key issues related to demand.
I think it's been incredibly impactful. If you look back to 1984 when the Checkoff was in the process of going through the referendum, and you think about what has happened to demand for beef, and you think about what's happened, in those days there was no such thing as food safety really. And since then, of course, we've had E. coli outbreaks and things like that that have changed the entire foundation of the industry. And if it hadn't been for the Checkoff funding research that addressed those issues specifically, and I would say beef demand and food safety in particular, we would be in dire straits as an industry.
From improvements in food safety and product quality to the development of new beef cuts through muscle profiling, Beef Checkoff funded research has delivered many successes over the years. Research has also been key in establishing and reinforcing the value of beef in human nutrition for all ages.
The nutrition program that the Beef Checkoff supports is very broad. It starts with a rigorous nutrition research program. Do you know, most producers may not realize that the Beef Checkoff at any given time is funding 20 to 30 research studies across the country looking at understanding the benefits that beef plays in health. So we've got a good scientific program, but it doesn't stop there. We're educating doctors and dietitians and nurses and fitness professionals about the benefits, the science that we're finding out about beef's role in health. And then we take that to consumers as well through Beef It's What's for Dinner marketing, advertising, and other programs that the Checkoff does to reach consumers with good news about beef's role in health. So it's a very broad program, goes from science to health professionals and even to directly to the consumer.
Really been the last couple of years, they talk about the impact of protein in our diet, the positive impact that it has. We've been showing that for years through those dietary research things that we've been working on. I think it's all coming to fruition now. But that goes back to the investments that we've made over the last 10 and 20 years. That didn't happen last year. It happened because of the investments we made over time.
As it is with other Checkoff program areas, beef producers themselves oversee and approve the investments in research. And every 5 years, NCBA research roadmaps are developed to identify the highest priority research areas for the beef industry.
There's no question that Beef Checkoff program has led to a tremendous amount of research that's been done in the meat science area, especially beef quality, that has led to new discoveries. It's helped find a lot of information that's been valuable to people up and down the beef industry chain. And I think it's also given us the opportunity to explore areas that we would not have had the opportunity to explore if it had not been for the Beef Checkoff.
When we talk about the types of projects that are funded through Beef Checkoff dollars, these are projects that otherwise would not be funded. And so when we talk about the critical need of pairing with universities to do this third-party, unbiased research on behalf of the beef industry, these are the kinds of research projects that actually impact producers and beef producers throughout the entire country, and when they're ultimately their bottom line.
Ranchers, producers, purveyors, meat packers all benefit from the research that's being done from the checkoff. Almost everything, if not everything that we do, is ultimately to improve the brand, improve the demand for that product by improving taste, sustainability. All of those things are funded by the Beef Checkoff. Food safety, another major area, ensuring the consumer that they can buy beef and have a safe and healthy eating experience with it. Without the checkoff research, I candidly don't know where we would be today with the issues that we've been faced with over the last 30 years.
The value of checkoff-funded beef research to the beef industry is an investment to continue to succeed. And I know we are succeeding right now. We're producing something that people want. It's safe, it's nutritious, and it tastes good. And that's our job as meat scientists and agricultural professionals, is to keep that demand going. That's the future of beef.
I'm Brad Bullitt reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
If you want to stay up to date on NCBA's efforts in things like beef safety research, sustainability, product quality, and nutrition, just visit the website beefresearch.org. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll dig into the topic of quality and how checkoff-funded research can help producers improve the beef they produce.
I'm all set with this week's Weather Watch. Today we're going to be chatting about November. What do the temperatures and precip pattern look like for the month ahead?
Cattle producers across the country work hard to care for their animals and their land. The USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service is there to help. Find out how you can work with NRCS to develop a conservation plan for your operation. Find possible funding resources for implementing conservation practices, or get free expert advice on ways to improve your farm or ranch. Visit the website nrcs.usda.gov today.
Join the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. There are big benefits to being a member. You'll get industry news in the National Cattlemen, email updates in the NCBA Beef Bulletin, plus discounts just for NCBA members. Join by calling 866-233-3872 or online at ncba.org.
When consumers choose beef, they expect a high-quality eating experience. So how can research help us ensure we're delivering the best product possible? Here to talk about beef quality research and its impact on the industry is Dr. Jessica Lancaster, NCBA's Director of Product Quality Research. Dr. Lancaster, why is it so important that we utilize some checkoff resources in looking at this whole topic around beef quality?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. As we think about our consumer market research, they quickly tell us that taste is the reason consumers choose beef. Yeah. And so our product quality research area really focuses on taste and that overall eating experience and making sure that that's the best for our consumers every time they choose beef.
So I'm curious, what are some of the factors that you're researching to try to uncover opportunities to improve beef quality?
Yeah, our program area covers everything from the production side as we look at management changes and how those impact product quality, to the handling of the product as we think about those processors in the industry and storage, and then ultimately the end consumer really has an impact on product quality. So understanding how those trade-offs impact tenderness, juiciness, and overall flavor of beef.
So you mentioned a couple of those. Maybe elaborate specifically what are the kinds of things that happen both in terms of production as well as the actual handling of the product that can either positively or negatively impact the consumer's eating experience?
Yeah, so one of those that we've been looking at recently is cattle have gotten bigger over the last decades. So looking at as those carcasses increase, how do we handle that from a chilling standpoint, but then also a fabrication standpoint? We also know we're really emphasizing using the entire beef carcass to be incredibly sustainable. So as we look at some of those alternative cuts, really doing some research around the best way to cook and prepare those products for that good eating experience.
Yeah, that's a great point. I for one, I've never really eaten oxtail, and I'm embarrassed by it, but people say it's delicious if you know how to cook it. So that's a great example. I'm curious, as you think about the improvements we've made in product quality, tell us a little bit about what's happened in the industry in raising and elevating the quality of beef over the last couple of decades.
Yeah, we've made tremendous progress in the area of beef quality. 30 years ago, 1 in 4 steaks would not have had an acceptable eating experience.
Wow.
And that quickly turns our consumer away. So the industry really rallied around tenderness initiatives, and we've seen incredible progress in overall tenderness. We've also had a really cool group of scientists looking at flavor of beef product, knowing that once we have tenderness, flavor is also incredibly important in a positive eating experience. And so over the past decades, we've really rallied around that. And though it seems like we've done a lot of work, now it's incredibly important that we maintain that high eating experience and continue to make improvements for the future.
Well, and speaking of improvements, I wanted to ask you that. I mean, we have come a long way, but as a researcher, what would you identify as some improvement options and areas for the beef industry?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few. Coming out of the COVID pandemic, we certainly saw an increased need for freezing research and understanding how we best freeze and thaw beef. So that's an initiative we're really working on right now. We also know sustainability is incredibly important. So understanding the role that product quality, as we think about beef shelf life, and when you select product at a retail case, the role that we can play there from a color and stability standpoint.
So what resources would you point our viewers to if they're looking for ways that they can improve the quality of beef they produce?
We have some great resources on beefresearch.org, but we also have a number of our researchers coming to conventions all around the United States to really provide that cutting edge information to our producers across the country.
Well, there's no doubt beef quality is a critical driver to beef demand. So thank you for all the work you and your team is doing in this area.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
As you just heard, a lot of factors go into creating a quality beef product, including flavor. We've got a look at some of the work being done in this important area.
Whether in the grocery store or in a restaurant, consumers choose beef because they expect a positive eating experience. They want their steak to be tender, juicy, and full of flavor.
For years, we've always said tenderness is the driving force in what customers think about beef. And we know probably today it's not only tenderness, but flavor is also a big driver in that.
We are at the mercy of the consumer as to whether or not they're going to pick up our product every day, particularly with competition. And there's a lot of competition in the protein space. The biggest competition is cheaper. And so what we have to continue to do is do research to advance so that we're not cheaper, but better. And particularly in the way of eating qualities, flavor performance, tenderness, all of those things really matter to those consumers, because when they're paying perhaps 2 times more for this protein versus the competing protein, they need something that delivers each and every day.
We know beef has a unique eating experience that is superior to other proteins. That's self-evident based on the price point of beef in comparison to other proteins. Consumers are willing to pay for that based on the attributes that it offers up. And so any loss, any changes to that is certainly detrimental. So we're always trying to build on a good thing and maintain that. It's really clear in the data that consumers' willingness to pay will decline if they have a negative eating experience.
One key area for Beef Checkoff funded research is aimed at better understanding the factors that influence beef flavor, with scientists at multiple universities collaborating in the Flavor Working Group.
And one of the advantages of Flavor Working Group is that we had people that came from a little bit different aspects. I think this has been one of the groups that I've worked with that has kind of laid all of our egos on the table and said, we just want to advance the demand for beef, improve beef flavor, and we've accepted each other's ideas. And as we've developed the research that's gone on, while sometimes each one of us takes our own part and does it, we come back together. And then we have a chance to not just be lone scientists, but to be a group that's going to improve flavor and give a return on their investment.
The main thing is that a lot of the other quality traits, tenderness, juiciness, we have a pretty good idea of what causes differences in those traits. Flavor, on the other hand, is extraordinarily complex. And there are so many things that influence flavor, from the composition of the meat to how it's cooked, to the differences in how people can discern what flavor is. And so the complexity requires us to have a better understanding. And a lot of the technology that we now have allows us to get an objective measure of flavor that we didn't have maybe 20 years ago.
Beef flavor is influenced by a variety of factors in the journey from the farm gate to the consumer's plate. The composition of the animal, the processing, the packaging, aging, and handling of the product, and the cooking method all play a role.
So beef flavor is the taste, including tenderness, juiciness, that influences flavor. It's the fat, it's the lean, it's a combination of both, and it's how the consumer senses it in their mouth, in their sinuses. It's a mouthfeel. It all combines to give a sense of what that product tastes like.
Yeah, like we have been looking at things that are associated with flavor in terms of volatile compounds, like things that are volatile, like when you cook, there are things that get released into the air, right? So if you actually taste food by your nose initially, before even you put that in your mouth. We have done instrumentation analysis to see if we can predict flavor from a beef cut. Like, it's very complex, and it varies based on your cooking method, what kind of cut, how you are prepping and how you are managing that product. All of that can have an impact on the flavor. So we have done some work with instrumentation to see if we can predict that flavor before actually it gets to the store.
We've worked a lot with beef flavor chemistry, the components of meat that influence the taste and the eating characteristics. We've taken those composition information and related that to shelf life stability and oxidative stability, so how the product appears and how well it sells in the case. Today we're working with MRI, CT technologies and 3D imaging technologies to determine the composition of the carcass from a fat, muscle, and bone standpoint. That not only helps us to determine the value of those carcasses and those animals, but helps us to send the right market signal back to producers so that producers know what to make, know how to build and genetically select their animals, produce their animals so that they're the most valuable for the consumer, but also the most valuable and profitable for their enterprise.
One of the tools researchers use is a trained sensory panel to evaluate the flavor of different beef samples.
Most all of the quality research that we do as it pertains to flavor and tenderness, our measurement tool is a trained panel. And so our students in this case have been trained over a series of weeks and months to look very specifically at attributes of beef. And they're able to quantify those as an instrument would.
So they're looking at flavor attributes, they're looking at tenderness, juiciness, and assessing those on a scale of intensity. So they're considered really an analytical tool in a sense. They're not there to tell us how much they like it, but they're there to tell us how much beef identity is present, how much oxidation they're detecting, these kind of more analytical attributes, so that we can then take that and relate that back to our whatever it is we're evaluating, process, product composition, and use that to make decisions, because that's really our end goal is to determine what needs to be done to affect liking of those key attributes, tenderness, juiciness, and flavor.
There's more research ongoing to understand flavor differences and the production choices and critical control points that will allow the industry to more consistently deliver the flavorful beef consumers want.
Consumers want flavor, and we did a lot of one-on-one interviews with consumers after we fed them. And the one thing that they always told us is, I like the taste of beef, I like the flavor. So we said, well, that's good. We can now measure flavor. We know what are good flavors and what are bad flavors. And now we need to really emphasize how to make sure that that's the eating experience that they have.
Again, beef demand very much driven by that eating experience, by the differentiating factor of flavor. Not only can the producers see that in the demand for their product, but they, as well as the consumers, experience it. So it's familiarity in that space. And when we say that we're improving beef flavor performance, then I think we can all relate to that and get excited about it too.
I'm Brian Baxter reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
If you want to learn more about how Checkoff-funded research is working to improve the beef industry in areas like quality and consistency, just visit the website beefresearch.org. Still ahead, we'll take you inside a special event that brings together researchers and educators to discuss the latest development in the field of meat science. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
CattleCon 24 is marching onward to Orlando, January 31st to February 2nd, 2024. Have your say in the future of the industry, network with fellow producers, or connect with friendly faces. Plus, the NCBA trade show will be on site with over 385,000 square feet of the latest and greatest in the cattle business to help your operation stay competitive and sustainable. Learn more at convention.ncba.org.
Time now for Weather Watch, brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors and WSR Insurance.
Matt Megan's here with this week's Weather Watch. I hope it finds you doing well. We've had some winter weather, got cold over the last couple of weeks, and some snowy areas as well. What are we looking like as we go forward? What's November looking like? By and large, milder than how we ended the month of October. Strong El Nino continues. Quick status check here. The red line, that is this year's El Nino as it's been trending compared to all other years since 1980, where we've had similar El Nino patterns. Right now, it would be the fourth highest line on the chart there, meaning fourth strongest since 1980, and that's through the end of October. We're going to continue to see El Nino throughout the winter ahead. That doesn't mean your impact is immediate. The migration, if you will, of the weather pattern does continue throughout the months ahead. So November through March, especially December, January, February into March, we're going to be seeing a drying out trend for the Pacific Northwest. And then gradually for December through March, we dry out around the Great Lakes. As far as the south, you get this wetness area, the green shades, that happens November through April. Really kind of starts toward the tail end of the year for the southeast and spreads out across the south and the southwest. And that goes all the way through April. So again, yes, we are in El Nino. Yes, it's one of the strongest on record since 1980. But what about the pattern? Be patient. El Nino's biggest impact is over the months ahead. What about the month ahead for November? Well, if you compare history, as I like to do when creating forecasts, if you go back and look at all the most similar years, temperature pattern will be mostly warm throughout the central and northern states, some pockets of colder areas out across the west, especially later this month, and across the east and southeast. I think the northern plains will be colder than what history dictates. As far as moisture, focuses on the Pacific Northwest, south into California, parts of the Great Basin, hit and miss areas of the plains, but by and large, as you go southern plains off to the east, still mostly dry. But again, El Nino's biggest impact has yet to move in. We'll be chatting about El Nino, obviously, as we go throughout the next several C2Cs during these weather watches. Till the next time, Matt Makins, blessings to you and yours.
Weather Watch is brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors, with you no matter the weather. And by WSR Insurance, providing insurance solutions for more than a century. Visit their websites for more details.
Each year, thousands of cattle producers gather at the annual cattle industry convention known as CattleCon to learn, network with fellow producers, and to get new ideas to help make their cattle business better in the year ahead. Did you know the same kind of meeting takes place in the meat science world? Russell Nemitz reports on the largest gathering of meat scientists that took place in Minnesota this past summer.
The hallways were packed in St. Paul, Minnesota, as the American Meat Science Association hosted a crowd of more than 970 at the 76th Annual Reciprocal Meat Conference.
So the Reciprocal Meat Conference evolved from really a group of 12 scientists that were animal scientists in the days before there was such a thing as meat science. And we're 76 years into that now, and it's really become sort of the family that works in this discipline that allows people to interchange ideas and to have conversations about those ideas. And it's really a family of people that have like-minded scientific goals for the meat industry.
The Reciprocal Meat Conference is really the gathering of the leaders in meat science. It's scientists, it's industry, academics and scientists, anyone that is really involved in improving the meat industry across all species. But it also is an opportunity to engage with the brightest minds in meat science to really help hone the expertise, engage with students who are going to be the future leaders of this industry, and really foster that intellectual engagement to continue that knowledge as we go into the future.
Each summer, the Reciprocal Meat Conference, or RMC, is the place where meat scientists and students gather to present research results, identify challenges, and share ideas.
The Reciprocal Meat Conference is important to the beef industry because this is our once-a-year gathering of meat scientists, not just nationally, but also internationally. It's an opportunity to share in a formal setting when we share research findings in our concurrent sessions and our reciprocation sessions. It's just a great place to interact and grow the knowledge base.
At RMC, research results that provide answers for the meat industry are shared in general sessions and in breakout groups. And poster presentations detail findings that can impact every point in the production chain from the farmer ranch to the consumer.
So one of the great opportunities about attending the Reciprocal Meat Conference is you hear topics that maybe for the first time, or you hear advancements in topics. So it may not be work that the Checkoff has funded, but it helps identify what are those knowledge gaps that the industry has and where can the Checkoff play a role.
Hearing research at conferences is amazing. I think it's kind of where at least I gather all my information, or a lot of my information, and then what I like to do is kind of package up the parts that I hear to deliver it to producers or other groups that I work with, because I think not everyone can come to the conference, but I think really finding those nuggets of information that are really can be practically applied on the ground is important.
So whether it's a big session where you have 100 people sitting in it, or whether it's in front of a poster board, sharing the results of that Checkoff related research, not only with other students to get them thinking about potential new projects, or with industry and other professionals, getting that research result out to the next generation of scientists.
Providing opportunities and helping to develop the next generation of meat scientists is, in fact, another very important benefit of the annual RMC gathering.
One of the great things we've been able to do in programs such as the Reciprocal Meat Conference is have an opportunity for graduate students to come here, not only to learn, but also to present findings of their research. Much of it has been through the Beef Checkoff program. And so it's a place to share information, but it's also a place to come gain information, and also the networking.
There's a lot of people that are concerned about who's going to do meat science 20 years from now, and who's going to raise cattle 20 years from now, and all of those things. And so one of the really good things about this meeting is it brings young students, both undergraduate and graduate students, into this family of people that address scientific related issues in the supply chain, and helps sort of create the opportunity for them to move into the industry, be successful in it, and become the leadership of the future. In my mind, it's one of the most important things we do.
In 2024, meat scientists will gather in Oklahoma City for the next edition of RMC. I'm Russell Nemitz, reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll dive deeper into the topic of quality and how it can impact the consumer's beef eating experience. That story when we return. Stay with us.
By installing Ritchie waterers, you save water while keeping it fresh and always available to your animals. You protect the land by keeping natural water clean and soil healthy. And you conserve power because they're energy efficient. We're committed to helping you create a prosperous, sustainable, and regenerative future. Because we know, like you know, that every saved drop matters. Ritchie, fresh water for life.
Are you concerned about the impact government policies could have on your cattle business? One way to make your voice heard in Washington is by joining NCBA. When you join, you'll be part of the nation's oldest and largest national cattle industry organization that has a professional team working in Washington, D.C. on issues that matter to cattle-producing families nationwide. Don't stay on the sidelines. Make your voice heard by joining NCBA today at the website ncba.org.
One way to build a better business climate for cattle producers and to protect and enhance demand for beef is to deliver the best product possible to consumers. Here's Kate Maher with more.
Joining us now is Dr. Travis O'Quinn with Kansas State University. Dr. O'Quinn, thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
With product quality, beef product quality being so important to driving beef demand and consumer acceptance, talk about the importance of research in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. The U.S. beef supply has a very unique spot in the global market when we talk about beef in terms of the level of tenderness, flavor, and juiciness, and the overall level of eating satisfaction that beef provides. Ensuring that for consumers in the United States is critical. It is the advantage that beef has over all other proteins, and we want to do everything we can to help maintain that. And the most important thing is that when a consumer purchases a beef product, we want them to have an excellent eating experience so they'll come back to beef products. That way we can continue to ensure that high level of demand for the beef products, and that really goes back to consumers wanting to purchase and eat the products.
Talk about the importance of having Beef Checkoff funded research like this and the importance of funding that through the Checkoff program, especially when it comes to ongoing research and maybe some of those projects that have been done over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an ever-evolving, changing landscape when you talk about beef eating quality on all that. When we talk about the importance of funding from Beef Checkoff dollars to support this is really the only source of funding that really focuses in on the cross-cutting theme of eating quality across all beef products. There's no other industry sources of funding that really focus in on this because it is viewed across the whole industry. And so without Checkoff dollars, none of this research would be able to be done, and then we'd essentially lose some of the advantage that we have when we talk about eating quality.
You know, I think we talk a lot about byproducts in beef cattle in general, but I think a byproduct of Beef Checkoff research is really then the development of future beef scientists. You know, we've used ongoing research for years to identify problems and improve quality product. Talk about your experience as a student working on Checkoff funded programs.
Yeah, something that a lot of people don't understand is that when we talk about Checkoff funded dollars for projects, there's always a graduate student on the other end that's helping fund their education. I'm a product of this. When I was at Colorado State working on my PhD, I worked on one of the first beef flavor projects that was funded by the Beef Checkoff, and I've been able to use that research that I learned at Colorado State to help springboard my career to where I am today, working still to this day in beef flavor and eating quality as a whole. Now, when we talk about funding, I've been lucky enough to have funding to help support students that I've had come through my program. When we talk about beef quality, about half the students that have come through our program at Kansas State within the last 10 years have been supported by Beef Checkoff projects. And so their findings have not only helped the beef industry move forward in terms of product quality, but also have given those students the springboard that they need to move forward in terms of their own academic and industry careers.
You mentioned helping the beef industry move forward, not only in terms of product quality, but a lot of the research that you do has some practical implications on the production level. Maybe talk about the tie between research and production.
Yes, absolutely. When we talk about ways that we can manage cattle to be able to tie back into the end product, sometimes, depending on where you're at in the beef supply chain, you may feel like the things that I'm doing early on may not have as big of an impact on product quality. That's a challenge for downstream when we put cattle on feed. Well, that's actually not the case. We've done a lot of research that shows that the management practices that we have early on have a big impact on the tenderness, juiciness, flavor of those products when they ultimately reach the end consumer. So it is something that we're always looking at to be able to maximize product quality aspects at all aspects of the beef supply chain to really ultimately create that ultimate eating quality.
Well, we appreciate the work that you do in this, and thank you for your continued dedication, your research, and just your knowledge and expertise in the area.
Absolutely, thanks.
Still to come on Cattlemen and Cattlemen, we'll share some valuable tips on how you can get your calves off to a strong, healthy start. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
From baling to loader work and property maintenance, John Deere 5 Series tractors can do it all. Run heavier implements with up to 130 horsepower, handle any loader work, easily stack bales with improved visibility, work precisely and confidently with precision ag technologies, and a variety of cab and transmission options to fit your needs and your budget. More choices, more versatility, more confidence. Ask your John Deere dealer about 5 Series tractors.
Join the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. NCBA is the oldest and largest national cattle industry organization working to defend your interests in Washington, D.C. And there are big benefits to being a member. You'll get news you can use in the National Cattlemen, email updates in the NCBA Beef Bulletin, plus big discounts only for NCBA members. Join by calling 866-233-3872 or online at ncba.org.
Not only do sick calves represent lost productivity and increased labor, the financial impact can be devastating. Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Brad Bulla explains how intranasal vaccines can help producers improve both the health and performance of their calves while adding to their bottom line.
The Santa Fe Ranch is located between the Santa Cruz River and the Patagonia Mountains. It was purchased in 1955 by the Sedgwick family, who later created a foundation to preserve this piece of Arizona agricultural history.
Part of the mission of that family foundation was to provide opportunities for people to get out of doors. And so we have a bunch of youth programs where we work with youth in their community. We bring youth out and do ag literacy on the ranch.
The ranch is managed by Dean Fish, a job his dad held before him. As manager, Dean spends a lot of time trying to figure out what is best for all the resources in his care, including the cattle. That's why he does everything he can to protect the herd from any risk factors that could lead to bovine respiratory disease.
My approach to BRD resilience starts with a good foundation in cow nutrition, good stockmanship through the process, and using good products to develop that immune background.
Many operations, like the Santa Fe Ranch, rely on Merck Animal Health's Bovillus Nasalgen 3 PMH to protect cattle against critical BRD-causing pathogens.
So it contains 5 different antigens. The antigens in that vaccine are 3 viruses and 2 bacteria, Pasteurella and Mannheimia. The 5 agents in the vaccine are essentially the agents that we see in bovine respiratory disease. So what's unique about this product, Bovillus Nasalgen 3 PMH, is it has protection for all 5 of the common respiratory causing disease organisms that we see in our cattle. And that is unique. No other product on the market has that.
I am a huge fan of the Nasalgen 3 PMH product. So I think for a few different reasons. Number one, it's a modified live product that's safe to use in a herd of pregnant cows. And so it doesn't matter what status those cows are in that herd. I don't risk any chance of impacting those cows' fertility or their conception. And so that's number one in a herd where you've got different varying calving dates for different reasons.
Bovillus Nasalgen 3 PMH is proven safe for use in calves 1 week of age or older. This was especially helpful recently at Santa Fe Ranch when severe drought forced them to wean calves earlier than usual.
The Nasalgen 3 PMH product, in fact, I think really was a critical game changer for me this year in a period of extreme drought because I had to wean those calves early. And so I weaned calves as early as 3 months old. But they were set up with that Nasalgen PMH. And so when I weaned them, they were resilient when I weaned them. They went to eating, and then when I gave them their booster, they took right off. The feedlot owner, in fact, called me and asked me what my protocol was because he was so impressed with the way that those calves really took off, especially for as vulnerable and as high risk as some of those calves probably were.
And I've been around 25 years in the veterinary community, and I would use the term game changer sparingly. I can count the number of products that have been brought to the market that actually change the way that we do business. Bovillus nasal gin 3 PMH is one of those products. And it's literally changed the way that we deal with calves at a young age. It's enhanced their health, and it's made the profitability and the animal welfare just much, much better.
The needle-free intranasal administration helps producers avoid injection site lesions, while the unique blue shadow diluent means there's no second guessing which animals have been vaccinated.
There's a product within that vaccine that actually dyes the nasal passage slightly blue for a temporary period of time, and then we can identify that that animal's actually been administered correctly the vaccine, and the managers really, really love that attribute of the vaccine.
I can see which calves have been inoculated with the Nasogen 3 PMH product. So that's another benefit that I really, really see. And again, I think just because of the modified live nature of that product, it really creates more of an immune response, so that calf is more resilient when I go to wean it.
Merck Animal Health will soon be introducing a new all-flex CleanVax intranasal vaccination system that provides for fast, clean, and convenient administration of intranasal vaccines.
It's a system that goes on the end of a conventional multi-dose syringe or single-dose syringe. It has a protective shield that can be replaced between animals easily. It's shorter, so it can very easily be placed into the nose of the calf, and then you can administer the product. It's super easy to administer a dose of vaccine, flip off the shield, put a new sterile shield on, and then dose the second calf. Another advantage of the CleanVax system is it atomizes or sprays out the vaccine, which allows better coverage, less drip post-vaccination from out of the animal's nose, and more successful, we believe, more successful coverage.
Over the years, they've seen firsthand at Santa Fe Ranch that Merck Animal Health has the right products to create a well-rounded herd health program.
I think in order to be relevant in the beef industry, you've got to stay at the front edge of using the best products and the best things that fit into your program. You know, and for me, the Merck products have provided tremendous value to me in my vaccination program. I have a moral obligation to set those cattle up for whatever that next step is, for them to be as healthy and as resilient as they can. And the Merck products let me do that.
Reporting from Arizona, I'm Brad Bullitt for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
If you'd like to learn more about intranasal vaccines and how they can add value to your herd health program, visit the website nasalgen.com. As we gear up for CattleCon, we're excited to highlight some of the great work being done by Florida's beef producers. Here's a look at a family that's been ranching in Florida for more than a century.
Having been in the ranching business since 1898, Henry Kempfer knows his family is the definition of sustainability.
Sustainability means to me staying in business and being able to keep doing what we're doing in agriculture or any business you're in. Actually, sustainability is a buzzword that's been going around for years now, and to us it just means, you know, we look at the word sustainable and we feel like our family, to be able to have been here 120 years, that we have been sustainable.
Kempfer Cattle Company is located on 25,000 acres at the headwaters of the St. Johns River. With Florida's growing population, it's important for the Kempfers to efficiently manage this vital resource. They have a 600-acre retention area where they store excess water to use during times of drought. It also holds nutrients in place and helps clean the water before it heads downstream to neighboring communities.
We try to be very conscientious of what the water quality is leaving our ranch. You know, Melbourne's drinking water comes from the St. Johns River, and a lot of that water passes through our ranch, and so we try to be very conscientious, and we try to do our best to reduce the nutrient load that comes, you know, in that water leaving here. It's our goal that it's actually cleaner when it leaves here. If it's coming through us, or surface water, you know, coming off, we would like it to be as cleaner than the water that's already in the river.
Kempfer Cattle Company has raised commercial cattle for over 100 years and purebred Brahmins since 1978. Not only do the Kempfers want the right cattle to fit the environment in Florida, they also want to raise them in a way that's acceptable to consumers.
Consumers are very important to us, because without consumers, who would we sell to? So we have to make our consumers happy. We want them to enjoy eating beef, just not only because it tastes good, but also we want them to mentally be comfortable with it, and the fact that they know that it was raised in a humane way, probably more importantly, in a way that it's not negatively affecting our environment.
The Kempfer family has a saying: the two things they have to worry about the most are population and regulation. They know the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is a key ally in the fight against burdensome regulations that could have a negative impact on their business.
I'm an NCBA member because I strongly believe in any organization that supports our industry. And anything we can do to be part of that and support it, whether it be in Denver or Washington, D.C., to support our rights and the way we do things is key to us staying in business.
CattleCon 24 is coming to Orlando, and Florida ranchers like the Kempfers want to show that there's more to their state than just beaches and amusement parks.
We're excited to host the convention here in Florida. You know, it's not just the big mouse, the big rat, as we like to say in Orlando, that's here, you know, representing Florida. And, you know, there's a lot of agriculture in Florida, a lot of cattle in Florida. We would love to showcase our state and our agriculture here from everybody else from around the country.
Ranchers in Florida are working hard to stay ahead of the challenges that threaten their livelihood. That includes the members of the Kempfer family, who know taking care of the land is one of the key reasons they've been in business for so long.
Every day we have to. You know, we need it to be here for the future generations. I'm 5th generation on this ranch, and if we don't take care of it every day, it's not going to be there for 5 more generations. And that's our goal. We're even beyond that.
In Florida, I'm Matt Fleck, reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Now, it's not too early to start making plans to attend CattleCon on January 31st through February 2nd in Orlando, Florida. Registration is now open, and you can get all the details at the website convention.ncba.org. Well, that wraps up this edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks so much for spending time with us. We'll see you again next week right here on RFD TV.